Now, the best picture is the one with you in it. You'll read the caption, you'll know why. It's you with Oshkosh. It'll be up in a few minutes, but that's the best picture. Few minutes. Barbara, it's the next slide. Hang on. Here you go. Go off with the boss at Oshkosh and Sean O'Keefe.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny. He was introduced as Barbara's husband because I had already met Sean O'Keefe because I volunteered at Kid Camp. Yeah. And
Hello. Hello, and welcome to the Retirement Social for Dr. Olaf O. Storsley. We don't have a formal program planned today, so if anybody wants to, once we get into the part where folks can stand up and say some things, then you're welcome to do so. If you just come on up and, well, we have a mic that can be passed around at whatever you desire. We just wanted to have this time together to send Olaf off in a good NASA fashion amongst his friends and colleagues and the folks that he, I think, has grown to know and love, and hopefully will miss as he goes on to Oak Ridge. So I'm Jonathan Ransom. I'm Olaf's mentee, actually. Olaf was my first interaction here at Langley some 22 years ago as I came and worked with him in parallel processing. And now I'm his supervisor, the head of the Computational Structures and Materials branch. And so things tend to happen in strange ways, but I've enjoyed my career with working with Olaf, and hopefully he can say the same thing about working with me. But, you know, that remains to be seen. Someone asked about whether or not when the roast was going to start. I don't know if this is going to be a roast. I'm not going to roast Olaf, but you're welcome to do so. So please come on up and and roast him as you see fit. So I want to just extend a welcome to those of you who are new to Langley. We have a lot of Olaf's family here, his mother, his sister, his sons, his granddaughter, his daughter-in-law, and a long-lost relative as well that has come from Oregon to be with him, and a host of friends that have come, that some of them his old classmates, some of them folks that he met here at NASA. So again, I want to welcome you, and hopefully that you've enjoyed the spread. That I'm sorry, I'm not omitting you, Barbara. I know that you've been an integral part of Olaf's life here at NASA, and certainly on this side of the water and on the other side of the water, as you have become a true South Sider along with me. So again, I thank everybody for coming, and we'll just share a few thoughts about Olaf's career right now. And as I said, if I miss something or if somebody else wants to share some thoughts, please feel free to do so. And after reviewing Olaf's career, there will be a portion at which time others can speak. And Olaf has a great video that was sent to him, or a few words that were sent to him from, is he a newspaper person, a TV personality? Okay. So after I go through your, well, did Bob leave? Well, I'll go through your career first, and then we'll play that if you don't have a problem with that. But whatever you desire, since you are the social. You want to do it? Oh. Well, one of the interesting things that I saw as I was reviewing your career was that when I came in '83, I thought that we were working in this great new era of computational modeling and application of the new computer architectures to structural analysis problems. So I thought, oh boy, I'm here on earth-shattering and groundbreaking work. And then I started to look at Olaf's career, and I saw that he started doing that in 1970. And I thought, oh boy, he's been doing this as he was working in a group called Automated Method Section and Structures Division for a while in 1970. And I thought, boy, the names have changed, but the people seem to be the same. And it seems as though Olaf has been involved in structural analysis and making use of high-performance computing since he came here in 1970. He worked in performing structural analysis for automated design of aircraft, and he became an expert in Nastran. And I knew that Olaf had worked with Nastran. He knows a lot of the Nastran people, but I didn't know that about him, nor did I know he'd done some evaluation of other structural analysis codes. He talks about the old codes like SPAR and the Whetstone code. But I didn't know he'd also done some things with ELAS and some other codes for aircraft design. And he'd also made some significant contributions towards the Viking project. Olaf does talk about those experiences and his experiences out at Boeing. And I've appreciated the work and the discussions that Olaf has had around the lunch table with that regard. The iPad project, I'm not quite sure when that was formed, but certainly there was an iPad development section, which I didn't know, and a branch called Computer-Aided Methods branch that Olaf was a part of in the 1974 timeframe, where he looked at computer-aided design in support of a major joint industry government efforts. The iPad project was the integrated programs for aerospace vehicle design, and Olaf was an integral part of that, and he evaluated and developed new CAD/CAM, computer-aided design and computer-aided modeling methodology that resulted from the project, and he worked on a new software research system called PRIDE at the time. So I came in thinking, like I said, that iPad was a new project office that had started, and they were doing wonderful things, but Olaf had been doing it for 10 years prior to that. So again, that was very interesting to me to see the types of things that Olaf did before I even thought about coming here to NASA, and before many of us thought about coming here to NASA. So Olaf has been involved in, again, cutting-edge research for his entire career. He worked in parallel processing when I first came, and again, looked at, I think, from the ground floor, the use of parallel processing, computer architecture and software for structural analysis problems. He worked, I guess, at that time, there was actually a computer in the basement of 1229 that you had to kick to get started. And that was interesting to see how Olaf could kick with his sandals on without hurting his toes. So, you know, he's been involved in a lot of different things, and he also received a Gigaflop Award for some of the work that he did on the shuttle, the Challenger, and doing some analysis work. He was able to solve the system of equations that resulted from the solid rocket booster model in orders of magnitude faster on the Cray machine than had been done, and that became an integral part of the analysis work, I think, that was done at that time. Certainly others were involved in that activity, but, you know, again, that's one contribution that I recall being made by Olaf that was substantial. And I guess as of late, Olaf has used that same level of innovation to work in a new area on this fieldbook programmable gate arrays. And that's certainly a concept that's difficult for many to understand. That is, to be able to do computations without CPUs. I think that he has worked in this groundbreaking area and has embraced change and has embraced the need to restructure the things that he's done to look at exploration, to look at further research developments, and certainly his interactions have been broad when you consider the number of people that are here and the number of people that he's touched, the students that he's mentored, and I think it's a strong testament to Olaf's 34 years here at Langley, and I want to thank him for that. Now, as I said, I'm sure I left out some things from Olaf's career, and you're welcome to correct me or to set me straight. Prior to doing that, I will play the little video if the Mac will wake up. This is a testament as to why you should never use a Mac. Are you gonna dance or what? I mean. Oh, okay. Perhaps it is the return and not banging on the mouse button. Okay. All right, double click. Now the question is the sound on? Do you know when the sound starts, Olaf? I can't get the bottom. Space bar.
Is your volume good?
He hooked it up. Should be there. Okay, you hear them.
Good afternoon from Oslo, Norway, to all of you at the conference this afternoon. My dear brother and roommate Olaf, now leaving NASA. I am greeting you from outer space. No, in the eyes of the people in power in Washington, from beyond outer space, from Europe. From tiny little Norway with a population half the size of New York City. From that small little spot on the map with fjords and mountains, valleys, and the midnight sun where your ancestors were born and raised, and from where they emigrated to the promised land, America, generations ago. I remember back in 1961 when I arrived 18 years old at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, and I was told that I was to have a roommate of Norwegian origin. Little did I know that he had a name that sounds even much more Norwegian-like than my own, Olaf Storosli, or as we pronounce it here in Norway, Olaf Storosli. Nor did I know that in addition to being a very friendly, youthful and intelligent young man, he also was a workout freak who inspired me and helped me build up a discipline and determination to improve on my own physical condition. Olaf and I used the floor for push-ups and the hot water pipe that ran through our room on the third floor gross hall for our pull-ups. Olaf in the hundreds, I in the very low tens. However, those statistics changed gradually, all thanks to you, Olaf. Olaf, you also helped me, comfort me when I got too homesick from life upstate Minnesota, where there is not a mountain, not even a hill in sight. Everything is actually so flat in the vicinity that there isn't even a bump on the road. Ever since college days in the early 60s, we have kept in touch, and you have always stayed enthusiastic about everything you have been working with or working on, Olaf. I'm always very, very proud of you working at such a famous and highly esteemed institution as NASA. I myself ended up in journalism and have been anchoring the news on the Norwegian national TV for the past 35 years, interrupted by a few long spells as foreign correspondent with focus on my special interest, Africa. In between, I was a stringer for ABC Network News New York, and no story there could be longer than 37 seconds, including signing off. And why? Because surveys had proved that American listeners couldn't concentrate on one single subject longer than 37 seconds exactly. That was 25 years ago. Now the stories are down to 27 seconds. In a way, the place where I'm sitting right now is new, since you and Barbara and Colin visited here last time. Here in Norwegian Broadcasting TV House, we have made some sort of a studio in the newsroom for the shorter news on the hour during mornings and afternoons. And the big studio downstairs where you visited, we use that for evening productions. Olaf, I have been so very, very happy every time you and family members have visited Norway, and I also had the privilege of visiting you in what was then your new house in Norfolk, Virginia in 1999. That was a lot of fun, and a highlight of my visit there was to see the Langley Research Center, meet some of your colleagues, bosses, and tour the grounds. I was so impressed. So to your bosses and colleagues, I want to say thank you very, very much for taking such good care of my brother and friend Olaf during all these challenging and stimulating years of NASA history. And to you, Olaf and Barbara, I say come and visit us in Norway as soon as possible. I wish you the best of luck as you embark on a new era of your life at Oak Ridge. Thanks for your attention. Tusen takk from Einar in Oslo, Norway.
I forgot to mention that Olaf spent a year in Norway in '84, and I think that he and his son, and I think that was probably a great, enjoyable experience for all of them. I guess what I'd like to do right now, well, I guess I'd say one other thing, since the pronunciation of Olaf's name came up in that particular presentation. I'll tell you what I thought the pronunciation of Olaf's name was. When I was coming here, I think I might have talked with Bob Fulton, who was Olaf's boss at the time, and he told me to come and talk to somebody named Olaf so-and-so and so-and-so. And I didn't know what he said, so I think I called Olaf. I might have called, and his roommate, his office mate might have answered the phone and said, "There's no Olaf Thornsby here," because I thought the person said Thornsby. And she said, "There's nobody here by that name." And I thought, let's check the number, and of course, I'm an undergraduate student trying to get a job, so I'm thinking, oh, boy, I just blew my chance to come to work for NASA. So it took me a while to realize that Olaf's name was not really Thornsby, but something else. Storsley, I guess, is the right pronunciation. So at least it's closer than Thornsby. So again, I'd like to just open the floor up to those of you who want to share a few thoughts about your experiences with Olaf. One thing I do want to do is acknowledge his family, at least by having them stand. If all of you that have come to visit here, nobody wants to stand. Elizabeth. Andy.
My mother and our only grandchild, Zoe, Barbara. And over there, Elizabeth, the only sister. I have three sisters. She's the youngest that came. And Gordon Obi came from Oregon with his grandson. And Gordon's relatives came on the same ship from Norway, and he's going to tell me all the genealogy information. Maybe he'll say something here.
So with that, I'll just go down. I do know that some want to make some statements, and so I'll call on those that I know, but those that I don't call on, you're welcome to come up and share a few words. Pastor Stowe, I'll call on you first. If you would come and say just a few words about your experiences with Olaf.
I came to Hampton in '69, and Olaf and his family came in '70. And I guess Saturday I saw Paul down at the Outer Banks with his daughter. If you watch Paul and his daughter, you see the modeling that's occurred, because that's what you saw in his dad with his kids. He was the kind of dad that would do anything for his kids. And that linkage, father and sons, was the same linkage I felt that existed in his family of origin. His family of origin is one that's very Lutheran. Very Lutheran, and we Lutherans, see, we're not very splashy, but you can trust us. We're just plotters, but the fabric of who we are, it grows out of our theological roots, and we're hard workers generally. We are willing to do what it takes. And you can look at his career, and you can look at his parenting. And my experience as his pastor until '99, when they moved across to Norfolk, was here's a man who used his gifts, employed them in ways that he could make a difference in the world, a positive difference. And when he partnered up with Barbara, that seemed to be a match that was just behind time. And so as they came together, and as Olaf has continued in his Olaf style to do his work and to try to make a difference, and he's done it. And I look at his sons, and I baptized Paul, and I watched Olaf and Paul grow up. And so this family, mother and dad and sisters, and have been, it's a good thing. It's a part of the fabric. What made this culture and what made NASA who it is, because I have a lot of people who experienced the journey like Olaf did in NASA. And they were people who were willing to pay the price. I hope that's still the reality around here. Michener said it was a great place in his book Space. And when I experienced the journey I've had along with Olaf, it makes me proud. And I hope that the cultural changes we're experiencing model, the people here model themselves after men like Olaf, and not what's in it for me. because if we can do what it takes to pay the price, we'll continue the tradition. Thank you, Olaf, for your witness.
I always feel that the choir is supposed to sing after the pastor speaks, but I'm not going to sing, so don't count on it. I will ask folks to come up, and the next person I guess I'd like to ask to say a few words is Olaf's mother, Mrs. Lila Storsley. And then, Dr. Carr, are you here? I will ask you after Mrs. Storsley finishes if you would come and share a few words. Thank you.
I have a card that my husband wrote to take along. So I will read that. Congratulations on a very successful and significant career at NASA. You have made a wonderful contribution to the country through NASA. As Dwight Eisenhower said in his farewell address in America, no, what America needs is not persons of genius, but of integrity that you have given in the 35 years. Responsibility, honesty, and forthrightness are what the attributes that were needed today. God bless you in your future years of work. And I wish he could be here with us, but I'm glad that I'm here, and I'm very thankful for his years here, and I think I should say thank you to NASA for all the encouragement that you have given him along the way. I was in the nursing profession, and I said, you should be thankful. We don't always get these little pushes that you get at NASA. And so may God bless the coming years with happiness, your home with joy, and your heart with contentment. I should say, I think I knew years ago that he was going into research or engineering or something. He was always taking his toys apart. Didn't always put them back together, but congratulations.
Dr. Edward Carr, Director of New Horizons Regional Education Center, will come and just say a few words about how Olaf has impacted him, and I hope how he's impacted his students.
Absolutely. I'm very pleased to be here and have a chance to say a few words, not so much on Olaf's NASA career, but what he has meant to the students at New Horizons. Albert Einstein once said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value." There's another quote that comes to mind when I think of Olaf as well, and that's the one we've all heard. Give a man a fish, and you fed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you fed him for a lifetime. Olaf Storsley is both a man of value and a teacher who has been greatly appreciated during the last 18 years by literally thousands of students who have sought to become scientists or engineers in this very challenging, changing world. At New Horizons Governor's School for Science and Technology, Olaf has served on our Science and Technology Advisory Committee for 18 years, guiding and counseling our director and faculty, while maintaining the quality of this important regional program. He has served as a personal mentor to over 20 students during these years and continues to correspond and follow the careers of many of these students. In addition to serving as a mentor, he has been an evaluator for projects that students must complete in our honors research and mentorship program. In fact, Olaf is the current mentor to Vivek Mukherjee, who is here today to honor him, and Vivek has just received the National NASA College Scholarship Award. Quite an accomplishment for Vivek, and certainly a testament to the work that Olaf has done. While Langley NASA as an agency has been a significant contributor to New Horizons Governor's School, Olaf has been one of a small handful of professional scientists that have been critically important to the success of our program. John Wooden, the great UCLA basketball coach, once said, "You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you." From our vantage point as educators at New Horizons, Olaf Storsley has had many perfect days. He has touched many young lives who will always remember his contribution to their careers. On behalf of all of these students and our entire faculty and staff at the Governor's School, Olaf, we want to thank you, certainly wish you the best. I was going to bring a plaque, but we've probably given you enough plaques in the last 20 years to panel a small den. But you know that you have our heartfelt thanks for all that you have done and all the work you've done with our young people. Thank you.
Dr. Carr spoke about the contributions that Olaf has made with the students traveling through life's highways. And one thing came to mind, and that is how Olaf has made contributions to me traveling through I-64. He seems to come up with every possible and imaginable or unimaginable way to try to avoid sitting 30 seconds in traffic. He will go around the block, turn at the White House with the picket fence, and go up the street and turn left, and then turn right, and then go back, and then come back, and then go that way, just to avoid sitting behind a car for 30 seconds. And I've learned that it's faster to cut through the Air Force Base, no matter how long you have to wait at the gate for the guy to give you a car to card you. But it's faster to wait at the Air Force gate and go 25 miles an hour through the Air Force than to get on the interstate and drive 60 or 65 or 70. Not really faster, Olaf. I want to tell you, it's really faster to get on the interstate. Trust me. So anyway, the next person that I'd like to come up and say a few words, if she's willing, is his sister Elizabeth.
I'm really glad to be here today. Olaf is the oldest of 4 children. He was the older brother to 3 sisters. The 2 other sisters I know would love to be here today, and if they were, then you really would have a roast, because he has taken a roast his whole life from his younger sisters. Olaf has, throughout his life, been the consummate teacher and learner, and you all know that because you're probably all teachers and learners with him. When he was young, he already knew very, very early that he was interested in math and science. He was not interested in literature and the arts. It was a later acquired interest. But I have a vivid memory. He's 9 years older than I, and I have a vivid memory that when he was in high school, he had to learn the speech from the Merchant of Venice that starts out, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." And he had to learn it to recite it in school the next day. Well, his method for learning it was to teach it to his sisters, And I vividly remember being in the den, and he would place us next to the window and draw the drapes. And so we were behind the drapes, and then he would open the drapes, and we were to recite the speech. And of course, we did it without realizing that by teaching it to us, he had learned it himself. And I remember him talking about in graduate school, he would have assistantships, and that was the way he would help finance his education. And so he would be teaching classes, and he said, well, the first time you teach a class, or the first time you take a class, you learn about 50% of it. Then when you teach the class the first time, you learn the next 25%, so you're at 75, and then each time you get closer. He uses teaching to learn himself. But I'm also struck by how he's a learner, not only with others, but I was in elementary school when he graduated from college. And I remember that his graduation present from my parents was something that I knew was extremely valuable and very expensive, and it was a slide rule. And that was how he began his engineering career, with a very expensive slide rule, which I'm sure they don't exist anymore, and no one uses them. And computers did not even exist at the time that he began his career. And when you think of how a mind can take those concepts and change so much in that period of time, it's just amazing what a learner he is. So on behalf of my sisters, too, thank you for being my teacher.
I'm Ken Butler, and I'm retired from the Hampton City Schools. And I met Olaf during the winter. The first time I met Olaf was during the winter of 70, 71. And we would go to this little peninsula chess club to play chess, chess tournaments, and get ratings and that sort of thing. And Olaf was Olaf would approach it with this, oh, shucks, I really don't know how to do this, And he played this, I'll just try this little center counter. And the difference between a center counter and a lot of the other chess openings is you don't have to be a pedagogue. You don't have to study master games to do the center counter well. And in a few minutes, you would find your whole chess army under attack from every angle on the chessboard. So he was very good. And I found that he lived around the corner from me. And so we would get together and play chess several times a week, either at his house or at my house. And then during the summers, we started going up to the school nearby, Sims Junior High School, run a few laps. And then all during the 70s, and then up to the 79, both he and I went down to Phoebus and ran this 10-kilometer race on Fort Monroe. And then during January of 80, I was sort of playing with the idea of running a marathon. And so I was running a little farther and a little farther. And about the 1st of February, Olaf shows up and said, well, I'm going to run the marathon too. And so I said, I don't think you have time to really adequately prepare, Olaf. But he kept on, and we ran all over Willow Oaks and all over Elizabeth Lakes and all over Hampton. We did a 20-mile run all the way around Hampton, in fact. And then in March, we went over to Virginia Beach and ran the Shamrock Marathon, which was a lot of fun. And then we still ran during the 80s, until he went to Norway. And after he came back from Norway, I don't think we ran a whole lot after that. But anyway, just so you could know another side, he is an intellectual and a scientist, but he's a lot tougher than you might think. Yarrick?
I am Jarek Sobieski, Olaf's office mate from the CSM branch, and my claim to the floor today is the fact that when I started at Langley on the same day in the summer of 1970. What followed was 35 years of shared research interests in the various ways computers may be used to help engineers in aerospace, and of a personal friendship. It is customary on occasion such as this to roast the retiree with reminiscences about as many funny events as possible pertaining to the roastee. But it is difficult to do that in Olaf's case. You see, Olaf is of a Norwegian ancestry, and Norwegians are not funny. Instead, they are decent, hard-working people who take life and their station in it very seriously. I know because I lived in Norway for 2 years myself, and I do not know of anyone more decent, hard-working, and serious than Olaf. Perhaps his upbringing in the snows of Saskatchewan added to those Scandinavian genes into a rare blend of talent and dedication. Langley Center and all of us here benefited from having Olaf among us, and our loss will now be the Oaks Ridge's gain. But that's life. Things are changing, so it remains for us to wish Olaf and Barbara everything the best in the hills of Tennessee. And thank you for everything, Olaf.
Before Olaf, the speaker talked about Olaf's athletic ability. And one of the things I remember is we used to always go different places around the center, and Olaf used to ride a bike. And he told me one time, he said, "Jonathan, come go with me, and we'll ride these bikes to the cafeteria." So, yeah, I'm a fresh out, and I didn't know any better, so I get on this bike with Olaf and ride to the cafeteria. And I thought, well, this is okay. This is all right. I can do this. But then, after riding a bit, Olaf, riding as fast as he possibly could, it seemed like as fast as he could, and me trying to be, kind of cool and not sweat too much, I thought about the fact that, well, I think I'll let Olaf ride to the cafeteria by himself and ride to Pearl Young by himself. But I didn't like too much riding those big NASA bikes. They were kind of big and they weren't the 10 speeds that I was used to riding, but Olaf was very, very adept at riding those things, and I'm sure his calf muscles are a lot bigger than mine because he certainly did ride that bike. So again, Olaf, I think, has been a trendsetter, and I know that I see Dan Geisey back here. I see him riding his bike all the time. I don't know if you and Olaf hooked up together, but you're welcome to ride those NASA bikes all to yourselves because I don't want to have them. I'll ask Mr. Obie to come up now. He is one of Olaf's long-lost relatives that's come all the way from Eugene, Oregon to share a few words. And it's very interesting that as he talked to people, he seemed to want to soak up everything about this area, soak up everything about NASA and about Langley. And I think I've appreciated talking with him, and I'm sure we'll all enjoy the words that he'll have to share with us.
Just come here. I don't know anything about NASA, but on television we see something about NASA in Columbia, and I saw some people, or I saw a rover on Mars getting out of the sand, and it got out. And a few days later we got a email say Olaf was retiring, so I guess he helped it. Anyway, we found out about Olaf through a computer, and it seems like about 150 years ago, there was a woman, Ingeborg, and her husband died. She had a bunch of girls. There was another fellow named Knut. He had a bunch of boys. And Knut's farm was about 3 miles from, I'm reading a lot of this between the lines, but Knut's farm was about 3 miles from the Skafsa church, and Storsted's farm was about 3 miles. So I think they got together in church, and they got acquainted, and the boys was just looking at the girls, and the girls looking at the boys, and they married each other. The wife had, his husband had died, so when the boys got married to the girls, they helped to run the farm, and each generation they kept running the farm and getting it out of debt. Then they went to America, each family. Finally, Olaf's family came to, was Olaf's ancestor, Olaf, was a brother to my ancestor, Gunnar. And we call it Gunder here. And I think they got to the Storsley farm, and then they came to America, and in that country, maybe them guys are Knutsons, but they're Storsleys when they got here, because they got on the Storsley farm, married some Storsley women. So that's about all I know about the Storsley family.
Marty, come on.
My name is Marty Wazak. I'm a recent member of the Langley Colloquium Committee, and so I've only really known Olaf for about a year and a half or so, although our paths have crossed a number of occasions over the last decade or so since I've been here. And this is Tom Mao. He's the secretary, right?
That's right.
For the Colloquium Committee. And we have a plaque that we'd like to give to Olaf for his many years of service on the Langley Colloquium Committee. I was asking Olaf before the program how long he'd been on the Colloquium Committee. And he says it's been so long he can't remember. But he remembers how he got on it. And he was telling me, and it sounded exactly like how I got on the Colloquium Committee. So you raised some concern about the quality of the colloquiums, and as a result, they put you on the committee and say, do better. And so that's, so basically as a certificate of our appreciation to Dr. Olaf Storsley in recognition for your outstanding contribution to the Langley Colloquium Committee. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do you have any good stories to tell us about the colloquium?
Not really.
Thanks a lot.
Vivek. Vivek is was one of Olaf's governor's school students who has done extremely well with regard to the number of scholarships that he's acquired as he will move on. And Vivek will hopefully share something really funny about how Olaf tried to teach you something and couldn't quite.
Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, thank you for the introduction. My name is Vivek, and I'm one of Dr. Storsley's plethora of students. He's taught quite a few people, including my own sister. And I'd like to take a moment to congratulate you this time, because Dr. Storsley has always been there for me for every award ceremony or so forth in the Air Force Base and everything. And it's just an honor to be here. And you've just done so much for me. I just really want to thank you. I remember when I first met Dr. Storsley, that was about 6 years ago when he was my sister. And I noticed the first thing about him was that how avid he was about everything he was involved in. Even though I was about in 5th grade, he had model airplanes everywhere, and he would just let me go ahead and he'd deck them out and I'd go ahead and play with them. And then he wouldn't mind if I accidentally dropped something or anything. He'd just be like, well, you can just put it back together yourself. I mean, you'll figure it out. You'll be a little engineer one day. Might as well start early. And so when I finally, 6 years later on, became a student, he looked exactly the same as he when I met him 6 years ago. And so he gave me the start with the hypercomputer and everything. And the great thing about Dr. Storsley is you can always find him anywhere in the office because he's always explaining something about Viva and giving the exact same speech to every single person he meets about how you can reprogram. So if I ever need him for anything, I just stick out my ear and I can hear him talking to any person. So I mean, it's just another facet of how avid he is about the work that he does. And yeah, I remember this one experience in particular when I was working on the hypercomputer itself, and I was getting frustrated that I didn't think it was moving fast enough, and so I was prodding it with my pen, trying to get it to go faster. And Dr. Storsley came in, and he walked in on me, and I was just a little bit embarrassed about that, and he was just like, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, everything's internal. I felt kind of, I felt kind of goofy about that, but it's just, Dr. Storsley is a great guy, and I'm going to miss you a lot. Moving off to Oak Ridge, this is a great opportunity for you, and I feel NASA is really losing by having you leave, but you have to do what you have to do, right? And I'm really proud of you, Dr. Storsley, and my entire family is as well. So congratulations to you and best of luck.
Ole or Paul, were either of you going to say anything? No, don't feel like you have to, but Paul, since you're standing up, you might as well. When I first met both of these guys, they actually looked up to me, and now I'm kind of embarrassed. Well, I don't have to look up to a lot of people, but you know, these guys have gotten, you see where they got their hype from, obviously.
So I'm Paul, another one of, Dr. Storsley's students. But really everything that he's taught everybody else, he's shared a big portion of that with me too, because I hear the same stuff that he talked about at work, at home. And this weekend I was at a friend's wedding, and my friend asked me, is your dad still talking about the max twang of rockets? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, you ever use that? And I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, last year I was working on something with rockets, and I had to calculate how it acted under the, max load conditions of a rocket. And I actually, when I was, this tall, he's telling me about the maximum loads of rockets, and I actually used some of that information in my regular job. Yeah, well, while he was playing chess with Ken Butler, he was, practicing with me and my friends. He'd set up 5 chess boards, and he'd sit on one side of the table and play 5 games of chess, while my friends and Ole's friends would sit there. They'd spend 10 minutes looking at the board. What do I do next? And my dad would just come along, move a piece here, go to the next board, move a piece. He'd, using that parallel computing. So it's amazing, and NASA is really losing a lot, but I'm glad that he's keeping working at Oak Ridge, and he's going to, provide his insight to more people and do more things with that. I'm very happy for that, and I'm very thankful for everything that you've taught me. Thank you.
Well, what I'd like to do as time is moving on here is present Olaf with his retirement album, and if anybody wants to say a few words right before we close, then perhaps we can accommodate it. So if we could, Olaf, we have a retirement album for you that contains many of the pictures that you saw up there, and I'd like you to come up and take a look at it. It has signature pages in it, so if anyone who's in the audience who has not signed the album, the signature pages, now would be an opportunity to do so. But this is just a small token of NASA's appreciation to Olaf. Unfortunately, his NASA plaque has not arrived yet, but this contains at least a little bit of the history about NASA with some of the photos, including a picture of our illustrious leader, Mr. Bridges, and a number of things that Olaf has been involved with over a number of years. And so I would like to say to you, Olaf, thank you very much for teaching me and your there certainly will be a loss to the center, and it'll be a gain to Oak Ridge, and hopefully we'll always be able to communicate, and perhaps while at Oak Ridge you can send money.
Don't go anywhere, Ole. Don't go anywhere. Well, first of all, one of my jobs is the property custodian in the branch, and I can confirm that Olaf still likes taking apart his toys, and he does, when he puts them back together, they don't always work the same. But we took up a collection in the branch for him. Oh well, just kidding, Olaf, just kidding. But we know how much you like buying the latest electronic gizmos, so we got you some gift cards for Circuit City and Best Buy. So,
Thank you so much, Brian.
all right, hope you enjoy Tennessee. And I hope, no, I'm not from Tennessee. Well, my parents live there. But I hope you have a car that is good at making it up and down hills.
Thank you very much.
I forgot that we have one of Olaf's classmates from NC State, was it? Or was it even before? Was it NC State? If you'd like to say something, don't feel compelled to do so if you don't want to, but certainly if you would like to share a few words, now would be a good time. Mr. Andrews? Okay, great.
It's a real pleasure to see love expressed with tears. It made me so happy to see that. Olaf went to NC State in 1966 to get his master's degree, and one of the courses he had to take was a course in complex variables. And it was taught under Dr. Bullock using a book written by a man named Alfors. Now, complex variables, it's not the easiest course, it's not the most difficult course, but under Alfors, that author, it is impossible. He will take all kinds of pains in the book to show that 2 + 1 is equal to 3. And then he will say it is intuitively obvious to the most casual observer that the integral of this very complex function is equal to whatever it was. I was in that course too with Olaf, and I was sitting behind him, and he was sitting with a group of about 5 people, very distinguished looking people. And I think Olaf was in the center, but he was the most distinguished looking of them all. And all these guys would ask these very intelligent questions and have some very intelligent insights. It made me feel inadequate because I was just struggling to keep up, and they were going well beyond me. And that was our first semester there in graduate school. And I saw him, or at least I thought I saw him, at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. I was a Lutheran too. I didn't say anything to him until about the second semester. And then I got enough nerve to go up to him and say, "Aren't you in Dr. Bullock's complex variables class?" He said, "Well, yes, I am, and I think you are too." Well, from then on, we established a friendship. And we were very close friends for the next year and a half or so when we were in graduate school together. Now, Olaf asked me to tell some of his shenanigans, some of the ways he cut up when he was in graduate school. And I thought and thought, and I couldn't come up with any. Well, yeah, there was one. I think we'd been studying a long time. He called me up and said, "Look, let's go do something together." I said, "Well, okay, you know, I've been hearing about a lake interior to Raleigh here, and I think it was called Lake Wheeler. I don't remember." I said, "Let's ride out there," and we fumbled and bumbled and finally found our way to it. And there was a spillway letting the water out of the lake, and the water would pour down a concourse, a concrete concourse, and that concourse was completely covered with algae. And it was slick as glass.
Olaf is from skiing country, and he saw an opportunity to ski. So he took off his shoes and got to the top of the dam and started skiing down. And, you know, he said, "Come on, try it." Well, it's all I can do to walk, much less slide down something like that. So I kind of squatted down and did it, and when I bumped my toe, that ended me with it. But he had a ball doing that, and he kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And I think maybe once or twice or 3 or 4, maybe 5 times he fell down. And I expected him to be sore the next day. But no, he wasn't. Or at least his bones or his muscles weren't sore. His ear was sore because he got his ear infected and he had to go to the infirmary. And you remember that, Olaf? Yeah. And I think he was wearing cotton in his ears for, I don't know, the next week or 2 and was having to put medicine in it every day. And then there was his landlady, a very prim and proper Southern lady. And Olaf, being from the Midwest, the upper Midwest, I think had to learn how to adapt to her ways. And one of the things that happened is that Olaf's father came down to visit him, and she wanted to give them some ice cream. Well, Southern ladies will not let you go until you have eaten. And they said, well, no, they didn't care for any. And then she asked them again, have some ice cream. Well, no, they didn't want any. And this kept on and on and on. Finally, they just, to shut her up, said, yeah, give us some. And she brought a whole boatload of ice cream and served it to him. I think he ended up with a headache, with a, you know, that freezing feeling you get in the back of your throat for the next week. I think if you had seen Olaf the way I saw him, as one of those very distinguished looking people in that complex variables class, you would not have been surprised to have known that he would have a very successful 35 years career at NASA. I think it would have been quite obvious. He's a very smart guy. And, oh, one other thing, he was in my wedding. That's not one of his shenanigans, that was mine. But anyway, I hope you the rest, Olaf, at Oak Ridge. And we have got to keep in touch. Thank you.
Have I left off anybody that wants to share like 5 seconds worth of, no, anything else? I don't know. Norm Knight left this photo. It was over there on the table. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, and I think he's gone already. But it's a 1975 photo of, I think it's for you, Olaf, and not for me. But if it's for you, for me, and I gave it to you, I'll come get you. I have friends. But anyway, it's a photo of 1975 that Olaf isn't in this picture. It's of the Structures Division at NASA Langley Research Center. And Olaf says he isn't in this picture, so perhaps what Norm wanted him to do was take it home and study it, turn it this way and turn it that way, and perhaps see himself in here sometime and can send that information back to Langley. So Olaf, you can take this photo with you, and if you see yourself, just let us know. So again, I think that what you've heard from his friends and family, and his wife now, as I call on her, and she doesn't know. No? Yes? No? Is that it has touched the lives of many. And, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you knew. You did everything else. So what I wanted to do, before you say something about Olaf, was to thank you for the hard work. And I feel a little embarrassed that we did, our branch did fairly nothing. And Barbara and Elizabeth and Mr. Obie's grandson, whose name is Nolan, and his mom. I don't think Zoe did anything. Oh, yes, and his daughter-in-law, Andy. And Jessica Stokes, the secretary, was here earlier. But they put on a wonderful spread, and I just wanted to thank them for all the hard work that they put forth. And I think they deserve a round of applause.
Thank you.
And actually, we didn't touch the desserts, my favorite, so hopefully after Barbara closes.
Oh, well, this was unanticipated, so you pulled a surprise on me. And for somebody who was always very shy, not to know it was coming was probably better than to have known and anticipated. But it's very important to me to say thank you, a special thank you to each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy days and busy lives to spend a few moments together with us, commemorating Olaf's transition now, after all of these years at NASA, onto the next stage of his life. Thank you very much on behalf of Olaf and myself for coming to share some time in fellowship together with us. I was thinking earlier when you were sharing about the venerable old Dr. Seuss, and he wrote a book called Oh, the Places You Go. And the only thing I can recall off the top of my head at the moment was something like this. You have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. Who knows where you'll go, but anywhere you choose. From the sea to the stars, here we go. But thank you to each one of you. And I now invite you to please share some cake and desserts, and please enjoy this remaining fellowship time together. Thank you to all of you. God bless. Thank you, Jonathan.
I want to say to the folks in my branch that I will not approve any overtime for attendance in this, but you're welcome to stay and have some dessert. But before we do that, Olaf, do you want to share just a few words? Well, neither was I prepared, so. And I guess we got through it, so it'll be okay.
Well, I didn't expect to be here and retire. I really like it at Langley, and I've mentioned this to some others that you know how you get so many emails in the mail, and I started getting some emails from a recruiter at Oak Ridge, and I thought it was like a junk mail, and that was last summer, and I didn't pay any attention to it. And then he called me and said, "Did you get the email?" And I said, "What? Oh, you mean that was a real email?" And he said, "Yeah, we really want you to come here," and they hired him at Oak Ridge to go after certain people. And so I said, "You mean you're really serious?" And I said, "Well, I'm happy at Langley at what I'm doing, and we have a new $15 million contract to build this space computer, and why would you ever want me to come and leave such a wonderful place?" And he said, "Well, think about it. That's the kind of people we want. We want people that are moving on and having a very successful program." And so he said, "We're trying to get those people at Oak Ridge." And they had gotten some people from other energy labs, Lawrence Livermore and Los Alamos. And so, and then I did track back and found out that I looked at some of those earlier emails and found out how it had happened. But so that's just kind of happened that way, serendipity, and it is a nice opportunity. I mean, even Dennis Bushnell told me that. He said that when he first saw it, he, I think, said something that was almost an obscenity. But he said the more he thought about it, it's really a good thing for me to do. And it should be an exciting experience there. But the bad part is that I'm going to miss a lot of you. It's been wonderful to be here at Langley, and I've enjoyed it. It's part of my career, and I just want to thank you, and that's why, you know, we
wanted to have an occasion where we can thank people. So thank you very much for coming, and enjoy something to munch on.
So you're welcome to join in the cake or whatever else you choose to do. So thank you all for coming, and thank you to the Storsley family and friends for coming here to share just a little bit with us as we bid Olaf farewell. Thank you.